All right, and here are the tools that we're going to be using. I'm going to be using a couple of T-tap connectors, 7mm socket, a 10mm socket, some zip ties, electrical tape, scissors, some fastener removers, needle nose pliers, and Torx T27. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that we unplug the battery, since we're going to be working on the electrical system. All right, now we're going to be using our fastener removers to get the window controller out. There is a little pin in here that I'm going to be pushing up. There you go. Once you do that, then you stick your hand in behind and kind of push in. You'll be able to disconnect that. This panel is held in place with a push rivet. So, and then there's also going to be 4 7mm bolts that I need to loosen up. So let's go ahead and do that. Make sure that you're putting them all together so that you don't lose them or misplace them. All right, once I'm done with that part, then there on top of the dashboard, there's a panel you can take off, and there is one more bolt in there. Again, this is also 7mm. Once that is done, there is one more bolt right there. It's another 7mm. Make sure that you do a pretty good job of not letting that bolt go back into your dashboard. So very carefully get that out. Once you do that, the dashboard is ready to be taken off. You don't need to take the vents off. You can literally just spool the entire thing off. Make sure that your steering wheel is down, as that's going to give you just enough space that you need to be able to get your dashboard out. And you can see how it kind of easily comes out. And now we're going to have 4 7mm bolts holding the current radio in place. I'm going to go ahead and remove those. I usually keep a little bag on the side in which I'm putting all my bolts, just in case. I don't want to get them mixed up in case they're different sizes. And now we are able to pull the stereo out. Make sure that you do this carefully, but it should come right out. And on the back, there's going to be a couple of things holding it still in place. So there's a main harness, which you can see right there. Right next to that, there's going to be a microphone harness. So that's the one that I'm going to loosen up right there. And then right next to that, there's going to be the antenna, as well as the Sirius XM antenna. The white cable is the antenna. Now, I did have a little bit of a challenge with that one. Unfortunately, the white case kind of broke off, so I'm not going to need it, but it seemed for some reason that it was just almost glued in place. You should be able to squeeze it in, and it should release everything. Luckily, the white socket was not actually damaged at all. Again, I'm going to follow, that's the microphone harness, and I'm going to follow that all the way to the top. So I'm going to get rid of these 2, I think they're T27 sockets as well, bolts, so I'm going to remove those. And then I should be able to get that trim that is holding or hiding the microphone. I recommend here, if you want to put something over your dashboard like a towel or something like that, just so you don't have any bolts falling into your dashboard. And now that I have everything taken, those 2 bolts taken out, there's actually a friction clip. There was one that's the harness that is disconnected. And then I'm going to push the microphone in, and now I'm good to go with that fastener remover. All right, the other thing I wanted to do was take out the microphone from the little piece there, that plastic, because I want to be able to retain as much of the factory look as possible. So I don't want to have a microphone hanging out or anything that's visible. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of run the microphone cable following the existing harness right there. You can easily put the cable is thin enough that you can pass it behind the trim, and then you should be able to also pass it right behind the dashboard so it's not visible. And then I'm going to have, there you go, the 1/8 of an inch connector. You can pass that right behind the dashboard. And then I'm going to use my pliers to be able to pull the connector, because I just couldn't stick my hand in there to be able to pull it out. We're going to use the pliers, gently pull it out, and there you go. Now I'm going to make sure that I'm running the entire cable all the way through. Now I'm going to do the same for the GPS antenna. I'm not going to glue it just yet or stick the back of it. I'm just going to run the cable and have everything ready. So as I did with the microphone, I'm going to use my pliers to pull the socket out to get all the cable. And as you can see, I'm pretty much getting all of the cables and the entire harness ready to connect to the new stereo. This is the USB. It comes with 2 USB ports. There is a 4-pin and a 6-pin, so I recommend you use both. And this is the antenna connector, the radio antenna connector. So I'm going to connect this to the white one. Again, the mustard-looking color one, that is your Sirius XM. I'm not going to use that anymore. And here is everything that comes with the stereo. So you can see obviously the stereo system. There's also a module that's going to help me with the steering wheel control. There's the antenna, there's your harness, there's a microphone. It does already come with a camera, a backup camera, and obviously your manual. On the back end, fairly easy to put most of these things in place. So here we're going to be putting the antenna, power harness, and all the other controllers, and I'm going to guide you through that process right now. That's the antenna connector for the GPS. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is connect the main harness to the power extension that you see there. Next thing I'm going to do is connect the module that's going to allow us to retain the steering wheel control. So that's very easy, you just plug it right in. Next thing, I connected the radio antenna, but actually it is better if you disconnect this and just connect it directly into your radio antenna in your car first, and then connect it to the stereo. And then this is the harness for all of the other, the microphone and other devices you can connect to your stereo. So you're going to need it for the microphone in this case. Make sure you have things lined up correctly. You should hear a click once it's inside and good to go. This is one of the USB cables that it comes with. Again, it comes with 2, a 4-pin and a 6-pin. It does say, the manual says that to use CarPlay, you should connect the 4-pin USB connector. So in my case, I connected both just in case. And then lastly, again, this is the GPS antenna. I'm just going to show you where it goes, and then you have to screw that one right in. And then I missed it, but you can see that I connected already the video camera harness. Very simple, again, just plug it right in. And this is the microphone. All right, and now here's all the cables that I have ready in the Jeep. That yellow cable is the cable for the backup camera, which just hasn't been connected. I'm just leaving everything in place. And now that I have everything here, I can go ahead and start connecting everything to the stereo. So this is the microphone. I'm going to connect the GPS antenna. It's right here. Make sure you screw that in tightly. And then this is the radio antenna. And this is one of the USB cables that it comes with. Again, in this case I connected the first one, then I went back and actually connected both. And then lastly here is the camera, the backup camera cable. Again, the backup camera has not been installed, but I'm going to go ahead and connect the cable to the harness so it's ready to go as soon as I have everything else set up. So again, pretty simple to make these connections. There we go. Now we plug the antenna. And now we have everything ready to go. The only thing left to do is to connect the main power harness to the Jeep. I'm going to do that right now. Again, make sure you're lining things correctly. And there we go. It should click in. There's actually a lot of space now behind the dashboard because this stereo is about 1/4 of the depth of the factory stereo. So there's a lot of space for all of these cables and then the control module and everything else. What I'm going to do now is put a couple of bolts to hold the radio in place so I can just power the car, make sure the things are working before I go ahead and put everything back in place, perhaps find out that it's not working. So I'm going to just put a couple of bolts and let's see. We have power, so that's good. And there we go. So I can see the radio is working. I can hear the radio through the speaker, so everything seems to be connected correctly. I was able to set up the USB, so now I have CarPlay. And again, I see that I realize that everything is working correctly. So we should be good to go now to proceed to start putting everything back in place. If you don't want to set up a camera, you should be good to go at this point and start putting everything back in place. I'm going to be doing some cable management because I don't want to have a whole bunch of cables in the back of the dashboard, even though I can't see them. You know, they could impede some of the other things that tend to move around in there. So again, make sure that you're wrapping up any kind of loose wave cables that you may have. The other thing that I noticed as I was doing this is there were a couple of cables that had loose ends. I didn't want to leave those kind of live, if you would, so I'm going to go ahead and use some electrical tape to insulate them from anything else like that. Right. So that one, there we go. I'm going to just insulate it. And the other thing I started thinking about was to use electrical tape as well for the microphone, for the backup camera, and any other connection that I made, just in case that over time the movement of the car doesn't, unplug any of these items. So I went ahead and taped everything together just to keep it in place. This is the backup camera. Alright, I think we're ready now. We're going to go ahead and push the harness in place, make sure that everything's out of the way. Alright, now I'm going to start doing cable management for the microphones. I'm using a couple of zip ties to make sure that it runs right next to the harness. Once you have everything in place, you can cut them to size. And then I'm going to run the microphone through this trim piece. I wanted to make sure that it was going to fit. There is a push rivet back in there that you need to make sure that you're aligning with your roll cage. Here I'm going to put a little bit of tape on the microphone to hold it in place so it's not moving around. But once I do that, I can actually then put the microphone back, that little plastic in place, and now it looks like it came from the factory. So now it is time to start screwing things back up again. This is, I think it was a Torx T27 bolt that it was using here. Alright, and now I'm going to go back to the stereo. Remember, I had only used 2 of those 7mm bolts. I'm going to go back and put the other 2 and make sure everything's tightened. Good to go. Now this is the antenna, the camera that it came with. However, I didn't want to use this one. I went ahead and bought this other camera, which comes also with a very sturdy mount, so I can put this on my tire mount in the back of the Jeep. It also comes with a longer harness, so it gives me more harness. All right, now I need to install the camera on the mount. Fairly easy to do that. There were a couple of bolts, screws that you had to put in place. These were small Phillips head screws. And I'm going to take off the tire from the Jeep, and then you can see how that looks. It looks almost factory. I'm going to run this harness through there. I'm going to remove this part. This is held in place with some friction clips. So you can use the fastener removers, and then you can start pulling these off. This is how this looks. Now, I took this part off. You actually do not need to take it off. I thought I was going to need the space, but I didn't need it. Now, to run the camera harness, it was really tough to get in there. So what I ended up doing was using that little plastic tube, and I ran that through the back of the tailgate. And then I can use that one as a line guide for the camera. So there you go. So I use some electrical tape to pull them together, and then I can pull from the inside that plastic tube, and then it would pull the camera harness through that slot. Okay, so there we go. Here's the camera harness coming out. And make sure you pull enough, but not too much. I just don't want to have a whole bunch of the harness left. So that's pretty much how I left it. Now I run the cable through. I'm trying to see where the connection should be. I don't want that connector to be right on where the tailgate closest. So I played around with it a little bit so that it would end in a place that is kind of protected by the tailgate itself. And then I used some electrical tape to hold it in place. Alright, so now let's work on the camera again. So I have enough cable here. I'm going to leave it a little bit loose so that I can use some zip ties to tighten it up with everything else. I was able to use a couple of the push rivets, take those out, and then that gave me enough space for me to push the cable inside of this trim and run it all the way through the back of the Jeep, so you can't even see any loose cables inside of the Jeep. This was probably the easiest part of the whole install. Alright, now in the back I'm going to use the fastener remover to remove this little trim piece, which once you get it out of the way, make sure you put it up, and then I'm going to separate. There's a back piece of plastic in here kind of hiding a couple of things that we're going to need, so I'm going to use the fastener remover just to separate those parts. And then once you can kind of hear them clipping, and then there you go. Now I can remove that part. That's the part that we need out. There is going to be a bolt holding the other large trim in place, so make sure that you loosen that. So you'll see it right there. Yep, so I need to remove that one, and then we can take this piece off. Before you do that, I again use the T27 to loosen these 2 bolts. And then after you do that, make sure you take off that trim piece very slowly, because it is being held in place by the battery outlet above it. So just make sure you move it just enough to stick your hand in there and disconnect it. And then you should be good to go. And then we're looking for the harness, not this harness, but the one that is this one that is insulated by the foam and goes directly into kind of the wheel well in the back. So I'm going to use the black cable and the white one with a gray stripe in it. The black one is going to be our ground. I'm going to use the T-tap connectors and my pliers to make them click. And then I'm going to do the same for the positive, which is the one that's going to give us power when I put the Jeep in reverse. Okay, once again to click, then I can put these connectors, which are now hooked up to the camera. We should be good to go. Now for the big test, put in reverse. There we go. Now we have a backup camera. One thing I also recommend is for the camera power cables that we just connected, I went ahead and also used electrical tape to keep them in place, because once you put the trim back in there, it is going to disconnect them if they're not being held in place. Right, so again, some cable management here. I'm using some zip ties. This is all going to be covered by that big trim plate piece. There we go. Again, make sure that you tape your T-tap connectors to your wires, otherwise they will disconnect. All right, now I'm going to put this is held in place again with a push rivet, so make sure you push the piece in, and this is how the camera looks. You can see the harness in there. All right, now time to put the dashboard back in place. Again, very gently, make sure that you're aligning everything. And then once you do, you can start slowly pushing back on the dashboard. You'll hear it click a little bit as well. Now we're going to go back through our process, right? So we're going to use those, install those 7mm bolts, the one that's in there, the ones at the top, and the other 4 bolts that we have. All right, now the last part is just to connect the window controllers. So make sure, here's the controller, make sure you connect also that little pin that was inside of it. Make sure you push it down so that it holds the harness and the controller in place. There we go. Now we have our CarPlay. It works really smoothly, to be honest, with the car. We're in business. Now let me go ahead and give you my honest review of this part and what I would recommend that you do. All right, and there you have it. Now, you know, I've been driving around with the new stereo for about a week and a half at this point, and so I can give you my review so far of what I think. It is really nice to have the large screen in the Jeep as I'm driving around. It's easy to tap, you know, Spotify or different things or navigation as you're driving around. CarPlay is very easy to navigate and is very kind of in sync with, as you're scrolling, things are going to be moving. The operating system of the actual stereo itself, so not CarPlay, but what it comes with, is Android. That one is not as easy to navigate, to be honest, as you're trying to figure out some of the different settings. Is not as intuitive as I would have liked for it to be. However, again, the stereo works great whenever I have it in CarPlay, just not as well whenever it's operating on its own. I think if I didn't have my cell phone, for example, in the car, it wouldn't be as easy or it wouldn't be as great of a stereo, because I have been having a lot of challenges with the GPS. The antenna doesn't seem to be working, so I can use GPS, but it's really going through my cell phone as opposed to directly through the GPS antenna that we installed. The other issue that I've been having is the stereo reboots about twice a week for some random reason. It seems that whenever I'm running multiple operations, so let's say that I'm playing music, navigation, and then I want to ask it to do something else, it seems to overload the system and it just starts slowing down and it reboots right away. Then it'll reconnect with CarPlay and everything's good to go, but I have noticed that. I'm considering and pondering back and forth whether or not to send it back and get a replacement. I do like the system itself. It's just I'm wondering if it's an issue with the specific one that I have, as opposed to the thing not really working the way that it should. It is great to have access to the steering wheel controls. I can control the volume. I can skip music back and forth. If I'm in a call, I can actually use the UConnect button, as it is obviously not going through UConnect, but it does work, and it can hang up the call, and you can dial into other things. So on that side, it has been amazing. It looks pretty much as if it was factory installed. There are no loose cables or wires anywhere on the Jeep. And so overall, I think I would recommend this specific stereo. Again, I don't know if the issues that I'm having are specific to the unit that I have, or if all of them kind of come with those issues. But I think it is worth the hassle. I was able to get the stereo on sale, so it was something like $87 actually that I paid for this, and then the camera with the mount was another $30. So let's say out the door, taxes and everything at $120 for the stereo, the camera, everything else that I needed. I think it was a great deal. So from that standpoint, I would greatly recommend it. Now again, you do get what you pay for, so it is not going to be as fancy as a factory installed GPS stereo with stereo XM and all of these other things, but overall it works really well. Again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please make sure to do so. Let me know what you think of this video and the installation process. If you end up getting the stereo, let me know what you think about it. And until next time, I'll see you later.